Alright, so for this video I'm going to describe the overview of these builds, not necessarily getting to specific stat ratings, since a lot of people in previous leagues have liked this format of actually describing the build itself, not necessarily just going straight into the stats. And that's not the only thing that matters into a build, it also depends on playstyle and whatnot. I will do a specific build rating video in like a day or two before league start. So I'm going to start with the new builds. This first one's not really new, but it's so old and hasn't really been in the spotlight for so long that it is basically new. So Winter Orb Elementalist, many people's beloved build from way back in Betrayal and Synthesis League. I think that's like 3.5 or something, 3.6. Receiving an absolutely massive buff this league. Instead of shooting only one projectile, it now shoots 3. It got an extra 1.5% base crit, and it received a 10% flat damage buff. And obviously the biggest thing here is you shooting 3 projectiles, which is kind of crazy. And Winter Orb, if I remember correctly, please tell me I'm not wrong, it will shotgun. It's been a really long time. So it's essentially just triple damage, and Jungrun actually did a 2-stone SF run in under 5 hours with this build recently, and the damage looked way better than I actually thought it was for single target, and this was obviously pre-buff. You can expect the damage to be over triple next league. It will be absolutely insane. Defense should be okay. It's an elementalist, which is nothing crazy, but it's better than nothing, and you'll also be chilling / freezing everything. And with this damage buff, you'll also be able to invest into a bit more defense than usual if wanted, since you have so much extra damage. Eventually, once you get enough duration too, you just channel for a little bit here and there, and it auto fires throughout the entire map. And if you need extra DPS, you just keep channeling for the extra buff for single target. I expect this to have a massive play rate this league. Ziz has a league started for this. There's a couple other ones. You can look at the Jungrun 2-stone one for a more real-world example of what to expect. But as far as I know, please, I hope I'm not wrong, is that when you shoot the Winter Orb, it actually kind of like targets the ground and has an explosion. So it should shotgun. If I'm wrong, I'm an idiot. Sorry. Kinetic fusillade totem. Nope, that's not the new one. Hold on. Luminary's mercenary sport. Technically also not really a new build, but new ascendancy, and hasn't been possible since Merc League. So it's a minion build, but it's not a minion build because it's a mercenary, where you use a Scion Luminary's ascendancy to get a permanent merc, and then you build the merc up with items and whatnot, and you try and get a good merc with good links and whatnot, and you sport them. If you missed Mercenary League and you don't really know what that is, or you're new coming from PoE 2, basically it's like a Diablo 2 mercenary where you have a sort of player, but it's an NPC, and you can give them gear, and then they also have their own skills that they'll spawn with randomly, and you have to find a good one. And then once you do find the good one, they're just super OP. That is the main downside of the build, actually, is that you need to find a good merc, which could definitely slow you down the campaign if you're really trying to go fast, if you decide to level as this and not just swap later from a different build. The other main downside, I guess maybe even a bigger downside, is that we don't technically know exactly what they did to mercs. They could have adjusted the baseline stats and whatnot, which would not be good if they really nerfed it. I highly doubt they would do that and completely obliterate them, because why would they make an entire ascendancy and then just completely nuke them? But maybe. It's a gamble. Depends on your risk tolerance if you want to roll this build or not. And then mercs can be kind of finicky, where if they have an extra active skill, it will effectively brick your merc if the skill they get is just worse than the main skill. Like, say they have the main merc you do for map clear is kineticist, it's a wander, so they use kinetic blast. But if they have kinetic bolt and kinetic blast, the kinetic bolt, they'll end up casting that, and it is way worse. Yeah, personally, I think it'll be pretty good to the point I'm still considering starting it. On the upside, if Mercsport does somehow end up very bad, then you can always pivot to Reliquarian. This Ascendancy looks very good this league. It got some insane, unique effects on it. But besides Kineticist, the many shot Merc with like bows, pretty good. So you do have a couple pretty good ones that you can pivot to, or not pivot to, but if you get it, you don't really need to necessarily fish for the perfect kineticist in the campaign. You can get something many shot. You can get a combatant, I believe is pretty good. Captain Lance has a guide which lists all the mercs and stuff, and it could also be different next league if they tweak them. We'll see it. This one's kind of up in the air. And for single target mercs, I believe the best ones were the ones with Molten Strike or the Blade Ambusher with Spectral Helix of Charthus. There's basically two angles you can go here with the Ascendancy based on, I think most people probably gonna go Flame Length. It's probably the best thing for early. Basically, Flame Length just gives the merc a ton of flat fire damage, and it is also buffed by your HP. So the more HP you add, the more damage they do, which is super good because basically whenever you can scale your tankiness and your damage, it is just really OP. For example, Ephemeral Edge, very good build. Ray Wind was a very good build. It is nerfed, but it'll still be fine, I think. Typically a very good scaling vector, so you can get like 10k plus HP, maybe even more, like 20k, and get pretty crazy. Later on, doing aura stacking with like aura effect might be better for going like a armor stacker merc or something, but we'll find out. Yeah, Captain Lance is a pretty good guide. I'll link in the description. Still a work in progress, but I'm sure he'll flesh it out by league start. Back to things that aren't necessarily new. Kinetic, fusillade totem. It got some changes this league, and I think a lot of people are unsure about exactly what it means. Basically, very early in the campaign, this build will be much smoother, since it will be way easier to hit a smooth breakpoint for actually clearing. Personally, I think Kinetic Fusillade, previous to this next patch, was one of the hardest leveling builds to go into blind for the entire game. It was very, very good, but it was very hard to set up. Now, if you aren't like, if you're an experienced player, it's obviously like not very hard. No leveling setup is particularly advanced to set up, but in terms of leveling builds, it really was, to the point where I even had problems like raw dogging it, because basically you need to have your passive tree perfect. If you mess up your passive tree like a couple nodes here and there, they didn't respec properly or whatever, it would be not good and basically just not work. You needed the links, you needed the perfect links, you needed perfect everything, which was not that bad, but like if you don't know exactly what you're doing, it was a big problem. Shouldn't be an issue anymore now that the base duration is lower, which was the main problem you really needed to get to the reduced duration nodes. I think now you can just get away with like less duration link and whatever, and not have to necessarily path to the duration nodes. And then you also don't have to worry about attack speed as much, because the big problem was getting too much attack speed would brick it, and it would essentially not cast, because you would have too much attack speed, not enough duration, and it just wouldn't cast, or it'd cast only like one bolt. I think mapping will probably be like a 20% nerf, which is fine since this skill is already super strong. It does a ton of damage, has good clear. It'll probably be a little slower to actually get the damage out since the attack speed is nerfed and whatnot, but it'll be fine, and you are able to get decent defense on Hierophant. You can also play this on many setups besides Hierophant, but I think Hierophant is the most well-rounded one, and then you can kind of transition into Kinetic Blast for like the ultimate clear build with headhunter and whatnot, you just explode the entire screen, which was nerfed a little bit this league, but is so good, I don't think it'll really matter. Halstron has a video for this. I think he actually has a video for kinetic blast and kinetic fusillade, pyro. Next up for another totem, pyro build, we got repulsion, stormburst. I did this build last league actually as a hyro, and I was extremely impressed with it, probably the most impressed with a starter that I've been in a while. Totems got a significant buff last league, and it is so good. It basically has none of the downsides that you'd expect of a typical totem build now. With the kind of ramp up time of the totems, it is pretty much instant. And since Stormburst has clear issues, the default Stormburst, Repulsion fixes this because now the Stormbursts will go outward, so it kind of has good AoE and will clear everything. Build is just insanely good. It has huge damage for Ubers early, good clear like old totem builds, and is very tanky. The build actually feels even tankier than the numbers portray in PoE because the totems actually taunt and tank a ton of monster aggro. I was actually able to do the juice breach strat last league, which was not easy, where you get more difficulty for each breach you did. And I was doing that on like 10 div of gear in hardcore, never died, never really had any close calls on 10 div of gear, and it was slow, but I didn't even expect it to be possible, and the build could do it. The downside, or I guess the upside here for most people, depending on what you're looking for, is that it doesn't really play with like a totem build anymore. So with Repulsion, you kind of have to keep spamming your totems so you can actually make the orbs explode, otherwise they won't explode. It still does mediocre damage if you're not spamming it, but there's really no reason to play it if you're not spamming it. And you get pretty good overlaps here. It has nice AoE. So you have to keep spawning the totems and then explode for the max DPS. For me, that's a good thing, and I think it's probably a good thing for most people since totem playstyle is usually kind of niche with the like ramp up time, but this you just keep spamming and they explode. A couple people have videos for this, Waggle, Aeroplane, I have a video from last league. Pretty much nothing should be changed here. Next up, probably the longest running meta build for a while now is Earthshatter Berserker, classic build. Best version of slams and best early progression in the game for doing bosses fast and maps fast too because of Berserker attack speed and whatnot. You get a very capable mapper which can scale very far. The gameplay is you just slam and then Warcry to explode your Earthshatter spikes. Previously this is a very button intensive build, but these days it's not that bad because you can automate a lot of the Warcries with auto exert, so it is actually not as button heavy as before and is an extremely good starter. Honestly, not sure if there's an updated video of this because it has been the same forever, but then probably is an old video and it's not super popular build in softcore, so yeah. So for this build, you probably want to be able to kind of understand just looking at a POB. It is a very simple build. You basically, the main thing that matters is getting just a good axe, good phys axe. Next up for slams is Bleed Slam Slayer. It is just worse than Earthshatter Berserker, but is very solid. The biggest downside is that you're really going to want to get a Rice Lathos belt early, which can be pretty expensive. If you played Earthshatter too many times and you want to test out different slam skills, Bleed Slam is a good opportunity here to do that, as it can also be played as Ground Slam, Sunder, Earthquake, or Perforate if you want to be more hipster, but still a solid build. Also, Ground Slam has an insanely nice MTX with a Celestial one. I really like it. It's very satisfying. Phys Plays has a very good video on all variants of this. He's actually, I don't want to say underrated, but he has super good videos. Very high quality, perhaps the highest quality out of most PoE creators. I can't think of anybody that makes a more high quality edited video and easy to follow. Poison, minion necro. GGG made what seems to be a pretty big change to non-spectre minions. They'll no longer pause while attacking, which is or at least they say, is a significant DPS increase for summon raging spirits. And a couple of their minions with summon raging spirits, probably the most notable one. Dom blow as well, but it's not really a poison build. Definitely viable. So poison SRS is back on the menu. Well, it was still pretty good before this league, honestly, but the buffs will feel pretty nice. Basically, you just summon the spirits and then go across screen, hitting everything. The clear is not amazing. Actually, it should feel better with the change since they're hitting more, and you get like melee splash or whatever. And then necro is also pretty flexible with a few different poison minion setups. You can try, if you feel like changing up with Holy Relic of Conviction, if you want a less typical minion playstyle, which has very good clear. Although I feel like this build is a little annoying for Holy Relic because they will kind of die early and you have to resummon them, which is not ideal. And if you want a more hipster build, you can go like anime weapon of range, or the melee is fine too. I think range is better, if I recall correctly. The way that one works is basically you blade fall and then spawn minions from the blades. And Holy Relic, basically you go lancing spray and you just like keep throwing it out and gets a ton of hits, and it triggers the Holy Relic a ton of times, and you scale cooldown reduction on them. Very nice. A couple leagues ago they actually added a cooldown mastery for minions, which makes it a lot easier to make Holy Relic very smooth. I'd say get probably Gazi or Billow Mage for a guide here. So Spell DOT got their buffs today, and they're all pretty good, and I think they should all be very smooth for starting now, but I'd probably still say like a good tier below every other build in this list. Most dot skills got anywhere from a 15 to 25% buff, which most of them were alright, but they should be pretty good now. The buff that stood out most to me is the phys dot, which each was phys dot elementalist, which each still got like a 20 to 25% buff, which is very, very good. It was already a very fast starter. Very good. I think that I started this build like 2 or 3 leagues ago on elementalist, and it was pretty okay. Probably like B tier, and I think it should be a solid A tier now. Cold Dot got some nice buffs, but personally it's still not something I would start, as it will not be really good DPS, I don't think, and has an insane amount of buttons for the DPS you get. And Old Vortex with the auto cast, essentially, is kind of like an auto bomber, is not a thing anymore. You guys still have to stop and cast it, which is the main draw. And then Wintertide Brand is a very well liked skill, actually. A lot of people like this, and it got a massive 33% buff. I think it might have been the biggest buff on the DOT skills, which would be very nice if you like that build, but it already didn't really do much damage. But it should be pretty smooth now, just not crazy. Ignite also got a decent buff with Vol Flame Blast getting buffed, since this build is basically just Vol Flame Blast for single target. I think stuff like Wave of Conviction also got a little bit of a nerf. Not as big as the other stuff. I'm not sure if there's any other Ignite builds that were particularly good that will really change how it plays, but it was pretty good anyways, so solid. Outside of the main elementalist builds, Chaos Dot is the other group that got buffed, and I think it was alright before. Better than most people I think expected. And it should still be pretty alright, nothing crazy, but more than enough for a starter. I think the most popular setup for this is Blight of Contagion, but there are other few setups that are kind of hipster, which I actually played one a couple leagues ago, which I was pleasantly surprised. Essence Strain of Desperation Traps, which is better than you expect. I was able to do 217s pretty decent with it on not like a crazy budget, and now you should definitely be able to do stuff like that. Exsanguinate mimes. This is one of the few builds on the list that actually got nerfed, but it's still good. Mine supports were nerfed a bit, but it's definitely still playable. It is pretty squishy. You get like hybrid energy shield, not a huge pool, but then you get like ghost dance and whatnot. And it's very fast, so you kill a lot of stuff with good DPS. Fearless Dumbo, build for this. Not sure if updated yet, but no fundamentals have been changed, so you can still follow it. Now, builds that are pretty good, but I wouldn't play here. Elemental hit of the Spectrum or Lightning Arrow Deadeye. Still alright, very squishy and not really up to par with the rest of the builds. It'll struggle to do juice maps on a low budget. But if you want to play a bow build, the bow builds are very popular. It is still an option. I don't really have much to say about this. Pretty simple. You just zoom with the bow. You put down totems for a single target, and then every time you attack, the totems attack. It's okay. It's just a glass cannon, which is not my style. Archmage, definitely startable, but it was pretty clunky before, honestly, and now it got some pretty bad nerfs. I think it should still be like B- tier maybe. I wouldn't start it. Arcane Cloak got nerfed, which is a pretty significant chunk of damage, and Archmage itself also got nerfed. And then additionally, mana regen will be a real problem now if you want to play lightning skills, since they're all getting 25% more mana cost, as well as extra cast speed, which extra cast speed sounds nice, but then that coupled with the extra mana is rough. I'm sure it's still playable, but I wouldn't. And if you do play it, I think you probably want to play on Frostbolt of Ice Nova, because then you kind of avoid the mana cost and cast speed thing. Brotha has a guide for Archmage Procession. Don't know if I'd really recommend it, but it is a very cool build. Problem with it is also you kind of have a sweet spot. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be eh. And that's it. There's a ton of good more starter. That's it. There's a ton of more good starter builds, but I'm not really trying to make this 5-hour video because I could just keep going on and on with different league starters. So if your build isn't here, it doesn't mean it's not good. It just means, like, you know, I gotta call it at a certain point. I feel like 10 builds is a good stopping point. And yeah, that's about it. Flowchart will be coming soon. The ratings video, specific ratings if you're interested in the more stat side, will be coming soon. Yeah.